JJ Perez with Inside Runner Sports. Greg Lucas, San Antonio Express News. We are in Denton, Texas, following UTSA's 45-23 loss to North Texas, the regular season finale here. Greg, just a tough loss. Little went right for the Roadrunners today.
Yeah, the unbeaten run is over. You got to start there. I think they had, as much as they didn't want to talk about it as much, I think everybody's goal was to get to 12-0, and it felt realistic getting this far, of course, and being it got down to an 8.5-point favorite, but being a favorite in this game. And I think we should start there because when we did the video last week, we were like way off, right? And I didn't realize at that point the kind of run North Texas had been on in the last 4 weeks, and all that would be on the line for them, and the needing the win to get Pro Bowl eligibility, and how potent their run game had been, and all the things that kind of made this more complicated than we thought it was going to be initially. So we were way off base on that, and I'll own that one. But this was, by the time we got here to today, it felt like UTSA was going to be the better team and had matched up better on paper, but we knew there were so many different intangibles with the emotional high of the UAB game, potentially looking ahead to next week, and where North Texas doesn't have a next week if they don't win. They had to have this, and
Senior Day
they're at home, and it's a rivalry game, and the history of the teams here, they had beaten UTSA 3 straight times here, so there was like the most intangibles in play, and I don't know what factored into the result today and what didn't, but I think you have to start with the fumbles in the first half. Right. It is, as you might still be able to tell, rainy and kind of cold out here, and
nasty day in Denton.
It's, Dadrian Taylor fumbles the first kickoff. That gets taken in for a touchdown. Sticks Jones muffs a punt. That gets taken in for a touchdown. And Frank Harris fumbles just trying to throw the ball, just a normal
slips out
motion slips. And all 3 of those were in or near the red zone, and all became touchdowns.
21 points right there.
And it's when you're a team that can't really throw as much because of the conditions, and when you're up against a team that is going to establish the run and start to wear your defense down early with that many extra possessions, I think all of that added up to this just being the perfect storm of everything going wrong.
Yeah, Jeff Traylor said in post-game that kind of the weather conditions made them one-dimensional, and it took away kind of what they've been able to do all season long with that 3-headed wide receiver monster. And, he gave North Texas a lot of credit with their game plan and what they did. And I did not think North Texas would be able to run the ball as well as they did today.
No, not at all.
Right.
And I don't know why that was such a struggle. I mean, we saw UAB have a little bit of success in that realm, but nothing like what we saw in this game here today. And I know Lorenzo Dancer didn't play in this game. I'm not sure if anything else was kind of a miss up front with the rotations or whatever it may have been. But UTSA entered, number 10 nationally? 101.7 yards per game, and they gave up 340 today.
Yeah, over 5 yards a pop.
And again, I think part of it is the conditions, and part of it is North Texas's strength, and part of it is when the game just kind of got out of hand. Then it became. I mean, Rashad Wisdom said it wasn't a factor, but I really think when you're out on the field that much early because your offense just doesn't have the ball, you're taking a pounding defensively, and it just is going to add up. They had 60 carries at the end of the game.
There was a point midway through the second quarter where you turned to me and you were like, all things considered, UTSA was in a pretty good spot.
No, I thought UTSA was going to win the game for sure when they were down 17-13.
To mount a comeback, and then I mean, North Texas
went on a drive
14 unanswered points before halftime, and that was it.
And then Frank Harris had the other fumble, and they punched it in again, and so that was I really did think at that point that UTSA was still in good hands because, North Texas really couldn't get much going through the air.
Yeah.
The passing game did not look pretty, and there were some times where UTSA moved the ball, a couple of drives where it looked like they were able to connect a few things, and
they just couldn't get
it just
going.
got out of hand.
Yeah.
Once it was so far, once it was 34-13 at halftime or whatever it was just kind of insurmountable at that point. And then I think that's why you saw Frank Harris got sat down, and
Josh Atkins came in, and I mean, Jeff said he was nicked up or he's been nicked up.
Right. It was very not definitive what the situation was there, but I
think we saw him in the tent at one point during this game, so he did come back in the game after that moment. So
I thought the most telling thing was that Jeff Traylor said that Frank's been day-to-day, or no, he's been a game-time decision every game, and he always plays. And I think that's enough to say, okay, he'll be out there Friday, and I wouldn't expect him to be anything less than at least what you saw today, which was he didn't look physically limited. He had a 69-yard touchdown run. That was a really good play, and I think the whatever injury it might have been could have happened after that. There was one play where he was kind of in the grasp and had to sort of twist away from it and managed to get the ball off and then played after that.
Yeah.
So I always kind of think if somebody comes back in the game and continues playing, that it can't be that bad.
We're
But
good to go.
we'll see. It sounded like he put up a big fight at halftime too.
Yeah,
Said
and he
crying.
wanted to come in. Yeah.
Said he was crying on Trailer's shoulder.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tells you that he wanted to be out there and that he was healthy enough to be out
So
there.
the 12-0 season is done with. I mean, do you feel like these guys were just? I don't know that I could say that I felt like they looked ahead as much as there was a letdown from the emotional win over UAB and winning the West, because it was always going to be tough to play that next game after that game.
You know, when we talked to Trailer on Monday, he said that, you know, the quote we've all gone over a million times, you know, they're going to try to ruin our season and we're going to try to ruin theirs. And it struck me that in their approach to every game this year, it had never been like a negative kind of a motivation where they were out to get somebody else and not just worried about something internal or sticking to the pillars or, you know, whatever it is. And I asked about this on Wednesday. I think it was the last question of the week. It was, this is kind of a weird lane for you guys to be in where you don't usually talk about stuff in those terms. And he basically said, well, they heard it from North Texas and that's what the Leadership Council wanted to do, so that's what they did. But maybe that's not an effective lane for them from a motivational standpoint to be out to get somebody rather than just kind of doing your own thing and worried about your own success. And I'm sure they were still mindful of 12-0 quite a bit and that they wanted that for their own reasons. But I think maybe the whole, however they tried to get drawn from the rivalry in terms of having that fire them up, it just didn't connect, I don't think.
Yeah, I think Rashad Wisdom said it best in postgame that, you know, this is probably a really good or a decent North Texas team. He said they were good. And I just think, you know, there's so much history between these two programs, and you throw the records out the window and it doesn't really matter. And I mean, North Texas gave UTSA their best shot and UTSA didn't give them their best shot.
Yeah,
I think that's
so,
probably the most disappointing
I mean,
thing.
North Texas is on a 5-game winning streak now, but if you look at who they've played and the scoring margins, I don't think that just that resume is enough to expect that they would compete.
Well, now you put UTSA on that resume, and it looks certainly different.
But I think this game is an outlier. Like, I don't think that this is consistent even with their winning streak. I think that this is so far beyond what they had done during that streak, because like the only win by a really decisive margin was last week against FIU, and that team is not going anywhere. And like they went to overtime against some teams that UTSA handled, and they were just close games generally against teams that aren't the strongest teams in the league. And so to have a result like this is not, I don't think, just based on the X's and O's, the strength of the team. I think there's something else in play here.
How much of a disappointment is this loss?
You know, I mean, they still obviously have a lot to play for, and you can make the argument that they weren't going to make the CFP either way.
Yeah.
I don't know that it changes their bowl destination much, if at all. And so from that perspective, it's not the end of the world, but there's
It takes away the national attention, though.
Yeah,
You're no longer
you're not going to be
undefeated,
ranked.
no longer
And
nationally ranked.
I think 12-0 is just something special that not a lot of schools have accomplished.
You did a little research on that.
Yeah, just
too,
a little.
that we had to throw in the trash. How many schools have?
I believe that they would have been the 35th.
Yeah.
And so that means that 95 playing in the FBS right now haven't done it, you know. And it's not. It is probably as valuable as a recruiting tool or as just something that you can put on a banner or hang on a wall somewhere as any kind of bowl win or any kind of conference championship, because it's so much more rare.
Right.
And so they're still going to get really excited if they win the conference title and if they win the first bowl game ever. But 12-0 is something that was special. And I think you would rather go 12-0 and lose the next two, honestly.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the future of the program and how people will look back on this season, I think that would be even more special than if they win the conference championship now and end up winning the bowl game, because there's just something different about that undefeated regular season.
Yeah, I mean, you always remember your first conference championship, though.
Yeah,
so
that'll be an enormous milestone if they're able to cross that off. And the same for the bowl game. They will always talk about
the first
bowl win, but this is just something special that they're that. When are they going to be? We talked about this before. When are they going to be in this
everything
position again?
that aligned to get to this point?
Not only do the non-conference schedules get harder, the conference schedule gets harder in a couple years too. It's just not going to. I wouldn't have said they would do it this year, so I could be proven wrong again. But it's highly unlikely that you'll be looking at 11-0 at any time in the foreseeable future.
Denton, Texas strikes UTSA. I mean, this place has a history of just having.
And after they got Rustin, you would think they're not worried about these places that they don't like. No, this one still got them.
Never beat North Texas, Rice, and UTEP in the same season,
It's
and
a very weird stat, but I guess
it holds true. I guess the three-headed Conference USA.
well, that one we're not necessarily going to get to keep going. At least
Yeah.
UTEP's not going to be on the
Yeah.
calendar. It'll be SMU and UNT and Rice or something.
So we learned also tonight that UTSA is going to have a rematch against Western Kentucky.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, right?
You and I have
What
a
a game.
a huge different definition of fun because that is going to be a.
That was the wildest game of the season, I think. It was, I
They were-
mean, certainly UAB
hard-
came down to the last play,
Yeah.
but there was something about the way Western Kentucky was so back and forth and felt like just like they were hanging on to this roller coaster. There was like such a out of control environment and game that.
And then just how that game ended with the
Yeah.
the clipping,
yeah.
and it entered the Clarence Hicks. That was
The
one of the most
crazy
amazing.
interception, and that goes on as Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year reel for sure.
Yeah, it's man, setting up for a big week at UTSA. Yeah, how do they bounce back from such a drain? It feels
I have
like
no
this is a
idea.
draining loss,
I
right?
have no idea because they haven't lost a game yet this year. So who knows what that does for them?
They seem pretty level-headed post game. Like it wasn't as
yeah.
devastating as it may have appeared to have been.
Well, listen, if they don't want to get so up about the wins, which they don't, then they don't want to get so down about the losses. And I know it's easier to say and harder to practice, but they're saying the right things to this point in that if that's their goal. And it would be another option to say, we're really pissed off because we lost this game and
Yeah.
let's use this as fuel, but they're not really taking that approach. They're just saying everything is the same as it's been because that's what got us to 11-1, and 11-1's not that bad. So.
It's not that bad. Did we hit everything? We Rod Wright was not here.
Yeah, I got to figure out what's going on with that.
No Tariq Woolen. He's been out for a few
Clifford
weeks.
Chetman's been out, and then Dantzler was the surprise
Dantzler,
absence.
Yeah.
Who knows how much of a factor that had in terms of some of those rotations up front? I mean, they could have used an extra guy, clearly, because they were out there for so many snaps.
Yeah.
But I don't know that one man would have prevented 360 rushing yards. So
5.2 yards.
5.9, 5.7.
Yeah, that's
UTSA's was 5.9,
Yeah.
but a lot of their stats are not as
garbage time
Yeah,
stats.
it's just like Eddie Lee made his nice throw and that messed up the passing stats.
Yeah.
Brendan Brady had his nice run that kind
Yeah.
of changed the rushing stats.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's much to be read into that. And when you have those 3 turnovers right away, even like any of the stats from the first half are way off too. Like it's not really indicative just because they didn't have the possessions. So it's not comparing them head to head. I don't think it's just the pure mass of North
Yeah.
Texas plays was just overwhelming.
What was the Jeff Traylor quote that stood out to you the most in post game that nobody wanted to go 12-0 more than they did?
I think that was the one that I put first in my story, and just looking for something that has that kind of emotional resonance and underscores what a valuable accomplishment that would have been,
Yeah.
how rare that could have been
Yeah.
for them. And certainly that element exists, and I don't think that they harped on that too much.
Yeah.
That there's a lot that they still have to play for, and they mentioned that as well. But it's undeniable what they would have meant to be able to do that, and I think that it's good on them to admit that sucks that they didn't get that done.
Yep, it sucks. And 11-1 isn't too bad.
No, it's the best season ever.
Yeah,
by a lot.
By a lot. So, and you still have a chance to win your first conference title.
Yeah.
So
You're already seeing there's the people out there on Twitter. I see you all. Don't be all down on them because they're 11-1 and that's the best thing ever. I know. Like I got you. The rest of the week won't be so negative. But this is the day that they lost an opportunity to do something unprecedented. So I think it's worth lamenting that for a little.
Yeah, I mean it's a dismal night here in Denton, and I think the tone bears the results here. So we touch on everything. We got it.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, let's get out of here. It's a quick week. Today's actually Sunday, and tomorrow's Monday on the football.
Well, we're used to driving back on Sundays, so it'll actually work out pretty well for us.
Yeah,
but-
so we lose a day, but we'll get next Saturday off, I guess. So that'll wrap it up here in Denton. JJ Perez, Inside Runner Sports. Greg Lucas, San Antonio Express News. Next Friday, UTSA playing in the conference championship game. We'll check in with you guys next week. Thanks.